Hello, dads. Welcome to episode number 1 of the Dad Ventures podcast. We're here to celebrate the fun and challenges of the adventure we call fatherhood. Today, I have a science-backed tip for you. I picked this one up from Michael Gurian over at the Wonder of Parenting podcast. Perhaps you've noticed this. When our sons get distressed, the word centers of their brains literally stop working. When a boy, or a man for that matter, is confronted with a stressful situation, the parts of our brains that process words and language literally shut down. That's because we usually go into problem-solving mode, not talking mode. And it can take anywhere between 12 and 24 hours for boys to articulate their thoughts and feelings out loud. Girls and women, on the other hand, when they have a problem, usually the word centers in their brains light up like Christmas trees. This is the science behind why women want to talk their feelings out, while men tend to internalize and later put words to what they're thinking and feeling. So how to handle this sort of situation with your boys? How do you coach them to problem solve when their brains are literally not processing language at the moment? I have an example of dealing with this from my own experience that I'll share with you. But before we go further, as we are a new podcast, I'd like to remind you to hit that subscribe or follow button so that you don't miss out on any new or bonus episodes we release. And if you enjoy the show, please let me know by leaving a review and a rating. Every 5-star review helps more dads find the show and join in on the adventure. Also, you can help me out if you share this episode with your friends. I'm sure you can think of a handful of dads who might benefit from what we're talking about today. So what do you do when your boy's brain is distressed and not processing language? Here's an example of how I handled it. Not saying it was perfect or the only way, just an example. My wife and I believe in giving our children after-school activities to help them hone their skills and figure out what their interests are. Without telling our son, we signed him up for ballroom dancing. When my wife told him that he was going to be doing ballroom dancing, he got rather distressed. He was not too excited. He ran up to his bedroom, lay down on his bed, and started to cry. My wife and older daughter went to his bedroom and tried to reassure him. They used words and language and all sorts of persuasive arguments. It'll be really fun. The teachers are great. You'll learn lots of really cool things. However, I could see that 0 of these words were making it through. I agreed with everything the girls were saying, and probably would have been saying those myself, but it was just as good as talking to a wall. So I just sat by him on his bed and put my hand on his shoulder for a few minutes while he calmed himself down. Eventually, the girls let us be, and after a few minutes, without me saying anything, I left him alone and we continued our bedtime routine. In the morning, about 10 hours later, he was finally able to articulate what had made him so upset. We assumed that he didn't want to do ballroom outright because he thought that dancing was for girls or he was uncomfortable for whatever reason. But that simply wasn't the case. More on this in a moment. First, the Dad Ventures website is up and live. You can check it out at adventures.dad. Don't forget the S, adventures.dad. When you go there, you can sign up for our newsletter so you don't miss out on any product launches we have planned over the next few months, including the first edition Dad Ventures deck. Also, if you go to the site right now, you can download the free guide, 10 insanely easy ways to connect with your kids today. Head over to adventures.dad to check it out. And speaking of the Dad Ventures deck, I've been demonstrating on our Instagram account some of the adventures I've been having with my own kids. Head on over to Instagram and search adventures.dad, just like the website, and you'll see the Dad Ventures deck in action. So what was the real issue that my son had with ballroom dancing? In the morning, he approached my wife and asked, "Why do you get to choose my after-school activity?" You see, what we assumed was boyish revulsion of dancing, and what my wife and daughter were trying to reassure him for, was actually a problem of autonomy. My boy just wanted to choose his own activity. He wanted a say in what he does with his time. My wife asked him what he would do if he could choose. He said swimming lessons. We were totally cool with that, and we made a deal. We'll put him in swimming lessons, and he'll need to try at least one season of ballroom dancing. He agreed. Win-win. If we had tried to pry that question out of him the night before, it would have been a total failure. His brain, as intelligent and problem-solving as it is, just simply did not have the words to communicate what was going on inside. Now, you men in the audience may be nodding your heads in understanding. You've probably felt this. Just think back this week to a situation in which you were upset or distressed by something. Could you articulate that feeling right away? Could you say exactly what was bothering you at the moment? Maybe. But more likely it took you a few hours of internalizing before you could put it into words. Also, you women in the audience are likely shaking your heads in disbelief. How dare I leave my son with an unresolved problem at bedtime? Why didn't I just talk it out with him or give him the words to his emotions? Well, number one, talking it out literally doesn't work. His brain is not processing words at the moment of distress. And number two, if I did try to label his feelings, I would have been grossly wrong, because his real feelings were totally outside of the assumptions that I, my wife, and my daughter thought was going on inside his head. Better to give him some time and some space after reassuring him that you love him to figure it out, and then let him approach you when he's ready to talk. Because boys' brains are geared less towards words and emotions and more towards movement, here are some other tactics that may have been helpful. Throw something back and forth for a while, like a stuffed animal, football, or favorite at our house, a frisbee. Or take him for a walk around the block, or even a drive. Just put him in some situation where he can move or easily observe other things moving. Or just give his brain the time to put words to his thoughts. I'm curious to see how this science-backed tip works out for you. Shoot me an email at aaron@adventures.dad. I'll spell that out. AARON @adventures.dad. And let me know if this tip has helped you or not. And don't forget to head over to adventures.dad to download our free guide, 10 insanely easy ways to connect with your kids today. Thank you for joining me on the adventure of being a dad.